Hello, my dear students. Today we are going to discuss an important keyword, that is voice of conscience, from our GS paper 4, that is ethics, integrity and aptitude. So let's begin the discussion. What is voice of conscience? You might have heard this word multiple times, conscience. And GS paper 4 also you will find the application of this word in different chapters. Even in the case studies you will find you are going to apply this keyword. Now, what is voice of conscience? So first, uh, we know that in our life we face different situations. At multiple times we had to take decision between what is right and what is wrong. We are often in a situation like dilemma to decide or to distinguish between a moral action and immoral action. Yes, there are rules, yes, there are norms which guides us to distinguish between a moral action and immoral action, but many a times these rules or these external factors does not work, and at that time the role of our inner moral compass becomes important. At that time an inner voice or feeling prompts us to act ethically and to avoid immoral behavior or immoral action. So that inner sense or that voice or inner feeling makes us able to distinguish between a moral action or immoral action. So this particular inner moral compass which is guiding us in a difficult situation to distinguish between right and wrong is known as voice of conscience. So this is an important keyword. I hope that you have got the definition. Let's look at the definition here on the screen, that the voice of conscience refers to the inner moral compass. I have discussed with you what is the inner moral compass. Okay, inner moral compass or feeling that guides an individual to distinguish between right and wrong. So here we are talking about an internal voice or feeling which prompts us to act ethically and to avoid immoral behavior when there is no external pressure, law or observer. Okay, so how it happens, how this inner sense of moral responsibility is going to work, today we are going to discuss this concept in very much detail. Now, the second point, the definition is very clear, that when we talk about the voice of conscience, so it is the inner sense of moral responsibility. This is the inner sense of moral responsibility which urges a person to act rightly, okay, even in the absence of external checks. So this is the definition. Now we will move ahead and will further discuss that how to identify the voice of conscience. It becomes very difficult, okay, so that's why we read it, okay, so that we could identify this voice of conscience. So let's discuss how to identify this voice of conscience. So if we want to identify voice of conscience, it is very clear that we will have to be familiar with the features or characteristics of this voice of conscience. So let's discuss the features or characteristics of this voice of conscience so that we could easily identify. So the features or characteristics, the first feature is it is internal. Second feature is it acts like a moral guide. Third feature is it is independent. The fourth feature is it has universal presence, and the fifth feature is it is emotional and rational. Now let's discuss all these factors one by one. So when we say that the voice of conscience is internal, what does it mean? It simply means that the voice of conscience comes from within. It comes from within. It means it is not external. It is not external. Not external means what? External factors means what? For example, many a times the societal norms guides us to distinguish between moral action and immoral action. Many a times we see that there are rules, and through these rules we distinguish between what is moral action or immoral action. Many a times we see that we are also influenced by religious teachings, the moral teachings that are part of the religion, like the concept of sin. Okay, so in this way we are influenced by these the external factors while making the decision, but the voice of conscience, okay, it comes from within, right? It is the inner moral compass, and that is why it is called internal. The second point is it is moral guide. Voice of conscience, the role of voice of conscience, okay, it plays its role where you have to distinguish between what is right, what is wrong. Okay, it means that whenever we are distinguishing right and wrong, that is based on ethics and values. Okay, and when it becomes difficult, okay, so here our moral guide or inner moral compass show us the path. The third important point is it is independent. It means the voice of conscience is completely absolute of if anyone is watching us or not watching us. If we are going to take a decision, okay, or if you are going to take or a decision where you are going to distinguish between moral and immoral action, so in that sense your voice of conscience will guide you, but this voice of conscience, okay, is completely independent. Even if someone is watching or someone is not watching, okay, in all the situations the voice of conscience works. Okay, and here we can say that it is emotional and rational. So here this point is very much important. It means in voice of conscience this element of reasoning is present, or we can say that this element of reasoning works. Okay, it means that this voice of conscience is emotional in nature too. Okay, it means it has the feeling. For example, many a time you will find that you commit any action that is immoral, and after that you will feel this guilt. Okay, or you will realize that I should not have committed that particular immoral action. Okay, so how we are feeling guilt, okay, how we are feeling comfort or discomfort, it is all due to this voice of conscience. Okay, so always remember that voice of conscience is internal. Voice of conscience acts as our moral guide. Voice of conscience is independent too, and voice of conscience has universal presence. What does it mean? That this voice of conscience is present in each and every individual. Okay, we cannot say that the degree of this voice of conscience is same in each and every individual, but we can say that the voice of conscience is present in each and every individual. So these are few features through which we can identify the voice of conscience. But again there is a problem, and the problem is that we also came across another word, that is intuition. You must have heard this word intuition. You might be using this word also, intuition. Now the question arises that is this institution or conscience same, or are they different? Okay, so here this difference is very much important, and here I am going to discuss with you the difference between intuition and voice of conscience. Okay, so let's discuss the differences one by one so that we could have an exact idea about what is intuition and what is conscience. So about intuition, what has been written here, that intuition is the immediate understanding or knowledge without rational analysis. It means in intuition, what is not included, what is not the part of intuition? So you can say that reasoning or rational analysis is not the part of intuition. It is what? It is some sort of immediate understanding. Immediate, generally, when we talk about understanding, okay, so whenever you talk by understanding in general sense, what you see that this understanding involves a step by step process. Okay, but what is intuition? So this step by step process is not counted in intuition. Intuition is a spontaneous in nature. Here this step by step process is not involved. It is the immediate understanding or knowledge, right? It is spontaneous. That's why it has been called that. It is the immediate understanding or knowledge where there is no any role of reasoning or rational analysis. On other side, when we talk about conscience, so here today's topic is conscience, now. So here conscience means what? The inner moral sense, okay, of what? Of distinguishing between right and wrong, that guides our actions. This point, but always remember, it involves rational analysis. Conscience involves rational analysis. Conscience involves reasoning too. So conscience involves rational analysis and conscience involves reasoning too. So this is the first and the most important difference here. Now let's look at the some more differences. So about intuition, I told you that it is spontaneous, it is instinctive as well. It is, this intuition comes from our subconscious, okay. And the next part is the intuition is also emotional in nature, right? But when we talk about conscience, this factor is involved here, ethical. It means when we talk about conscience, so ethical and moral dimensions are the part of conscience. And since reasoning and rational analysis is involved in conscience, so therefore the conscience is evaluative also. But intuition is not evaluative. Intuition is not evaluative. Here the conscience is evaluative. So I hope that you are understanding. I will also discuss examples so that you could understand the concepts in a more better way. Now the third and the most important point here is that from where this intuition comes. So this intuition arises from feelings, and our feelings comes from past experiences, right? So the combination of our feelings which are coming from our past experiences, they do what? They create, okay, gut sense in our mind, which you often use like, this is my gut sense, this is my feeling. Many times while appearing in prelims examination, you say ki this is mera guess, this is guess, okay, this is my gut sense or feeling, ki answer will be B option only, okay. So how you can make that guess, that smart guess? So that smart guess is coming from intuition, okay. It means that you have studied that particular subject in detail and therefore you are able to make the smart guesses. So always remember that when we talk about intuition, this intuition arises from our feelings, and our feelings are the source of our feelings are what? Our past experiences, and it created a kind of gut sense or feeling. So the thing which you know by the name of gut sense or feeling, that is what? Intuition. But when we talk about, okay, conscience, that how this conscience, okay, where this conscience comes from, so the answer is there are some internalized moral values. For example, we are born, we are grown up, okay. We are grown up in a family, we are grown up in a community, we studied in schools and colleges, we came across hundreds of people in our life's journey, we are educated, okay. So this entire processes, what we see that some moral values are internalized, and the moral values that are internalized, basically they enable us to make rational analysis or ethical reasoning, and this is what? Conscience. So I hope that this part is also clear, okay. Now let's discuss one more feature here, that what is the how the intuition functions, okay. So I have told you that the function of intuition is what? So right, the the basis of intuition, let's discuss the basis of intuition. So intuition is often unconscious, I have already told with you, I have already discussed it, and intuition is also as spontaneous. And what about conscience? So this conscience is based on learned values, our moral education, okay. And these learned values and moral education, okay, they actually develop a kind of rational thought, and from where the reasonings comes here. So this is the reasoning part. So I hope that this you have understood. Now The next part is right, intuition. Okay, next part. So these intuition is influenced by our emotions. Okay, because when we say gut sense or feeling, so from where this gut sense or feeling comes? Okay, so obviously it is influenced by our emotions. The intuition is also influenced by our subconscious memories. Okay, or you can say that intuition training, something that is repeated again and again, that also influences your intuition. But what about conscience? I am again repeating it, that our conscience is shaped by the family, our conscience is shaped by the society, our conscience is shaped by the religion, our conscience is shaped by the education that we are getting. And in this way our conscience also acts as an important factor in our moral development. So I hope that this point you have understood. Now, let's take an example so that we could understand it in a more clear way. For example, what is intuition? Suppose we are walking on a road and suddenly what we see, that we sense some danger. Okay, suppose it's night and we are crossing, okay, we are passing through a road and suddenly you sense some danger, yet there is no any proof of danger, right? You don't witness any danger, but still you sense some danger. And what you do? You change the route, you avoid that route. So, without any clear reason, the danger is not seen, the danger is not witnessed, but you are sensing the danger, and spontaneously you are deciding that I will not follow this route, I am going to change my route. So this is what intuition. And many a times what we see is that the intuition works too. Okay, now the second point is what? The second example of conscience, this is very much important. For example, if you are a civil servant, okay, and someone is offering you bribe, okay, to get his or her work done, okay, and you know that according to the rule based ethics this is wrong. Okay, so here the rule based ethics guides you that don't accept the bribe, but there is crisis of conscience. Okay, suppose you need money, okay, suppose there is some urgent need for a handsome amount and someone is offering you a handsome amount as a bribe. Okay, now there is a dilemma. Okay, on one side you know that if you accept the bribe, okay, no one will know this. Okay, but your voice of conscience will say that no, this is not good. Even if someone knows about this corruption or does not know about this corruption, okay, you should not do it because it is an immoral behavior. So here, okay, whenever we are in a dilemma, there is crisis of conscience, and here our conscience does what? Our conscience guides us that which path is morally right and which is morally wrong. So as a civil servant or as a government servant, if you refuses to take the bribe, it is due to your conscience. But if the same civil servant is going through a road and suddenly he senses some danger, without the evidence of some danger, if he or she changes the road, it means that, okay, it means that this is your intuition. So I hope that the difference is clear, that intuition is a different thing, conscience is a different thing. And conscience also helps us in taking decisions, and many a times intuition also helps us in taking important decisions. So I will again discuss a separate chapter intuition, and then I will enter into intuition in detail. Okay, so this is the point. So I hope that you have understood that when we say intuition, so intuition is what? Intuition is an instinctive understanding, okay, often often operates in a subconscious stage. So what is intuition? Again I am repeating that it is an instinctive understanding that often operates in a subconscious stage, right? And what is conscious? Okay, so it is a moral compass that guides us and that also evaluates the righteousness and wrongness of our actions. But both are internal in nature. Intuition is also internal in nature, and conscience is also internal in nature. Okay, On one side, intuition is spontaneous and in subconscious stage. On the other side, what we see that the conscience is rooted in our ethics and values. So which one is more important in ethical decision making? Okay, so obviously we can say that if we compare intuition with conscience, which is more important in making moral decisions, so the answer is conscience. The role of conscience is more important because it involves rational analysis and reasoning. So I hope that you have got my point. Now we are moving ahead. Okay, intuition is often linked with emotional intelligence and instinct, basic instinct जिसको आप कहते हो. On the other side, conscience is linked with Kantian ethics, spiritual traditions like the Gita and the Christianity, which I am going to discuss with you. Now, this conscience, no doubt this conscience is important for all, but this conscience or the voice of conscience is more important for civil servants. Now we need to understand that why this conscience or voice of conscience is important for civil servants. Okay, so here first is this voice of conscience acts as the ultimate ethical guide. Okay, voice of conscience acts as the ultimate ethical guide. Why we are saying this? There is a reason behind this. And what is that reason? Many a times, generally, as civil servant, we work according to rule book. Okay, you will have to work according to rule book. But many a times, the decision or the role of voice of conscience becomes important because many a times you will find that the laws are silent. Many a times you will find that the laws are unclear. Many a times you will find that the laws are manipulated also. Many a times you will find that the law and morality often comes in conflict with each other. So when law and morality will come in conflict with each other, what will you do? So here, voice of conscience will help you in taking morally correct decisions. So obviously it is important that when laws are silent, unclear, manipulative, when law and morality comes in conflict with each other, in that stage what happens is the voice of conscience acts as the ultimate ethical guide, and that is why it is important for the civil servants. Now the second point here is voice of conscience resists corruption and unethical orders, that I've already discussed with you. That suppose someone is offering you bribe, okay, and you are saying no to bribe. Okay, it means that why you are saying no to bribe? Because your voice of conscience is playing an important role. Suppose there is some political pressure to do a corrupt task, okay, and you know that if I will deny the orders, okay, so definitely this will have an adverse effect on my career progression. But still, okay, you did not fall prey to the political pressure, you did not fall prey to the favoritism, you are not ready to accept bribe, you are not ready to be a part of this corrupt system, you are always resisting corruption. Okay, so why you are always resisting corruption? Because your inner voice is making you capable for doing this. So here your inner voice is helping you to resist unethical actions. That is an important part. And when a civil servant acts in sync with his voice of conscience, okay, when a civil servant maintains integrity, credibility and transparency in governance, so ultimately this will strengthen public trust. So here again what we see, that the voice of conscience plays an important role. And lastly and the most importantly, the voice of conscience also helps in solving ethical dilemmas. I've already discussed with you that many a times we face dilemma. Okay, there are dilemma, like for example, okay, you will find many things, many ideas will be conflicting with each other. Like I told you that when there is a conflict between law and morality, what will you do? This is also a kind of ethical dilemma. When there will be a conflict between loyalty and legality, what will you do? Okay, so in order to take moral judgments, whenever such ideas come in conflict with each other, the voice of conscience helps us in solving these ethical dilemmas, and that is why the voice of conscience is important. And I've already discussed with you that the voice of conscience is not only important for civil servants, it is important for everyone. Because when we will act in accordance with that inner moral compass, so that inner moral compass will guide us to act with honesty. We will have empathy. We will maintain self discipline. We will say no to corrupt practices in our personal life or public life. So ultimately, what will happen? The voice of conscience helps us in building our moral character. So this is an important point. Now, what is the second point? It also promotes, voice of conscience also promotes social harmony. What does it mean? It simply means that, okay, if you avoid immoral actions, if you are able to distinguish between moral and immoral actions, right and wrong, so obviously you will say no to cheating, you will say no to violence, you will say no to exploitation, you will not support any kind of injustice in the society. So ultimately what will happen, if each and every individual start acting on the basis of his or her voice of conscience on an ethical ground from in a moral sense, so ultimately this will promote what? Social harmony, right? So this is an important part. And finally, what we see that if we work in sync with our voice of conscience, if we say no to immoral actions, so what will happen? Okay, if your actions are aligned with your voice of conscience, if you are not doing any immoral action, so ultimately you will not have any sense of guilt, you will not have any sense of regret, you will not have any sense of psychological conflict, and that will ultimately ensure your inner peace. And the fourth and the last point is what? It supports civil courage. Simply means what? Okay, civil courage means what? Many a times you will find a lot of people who stand with those people who are bullied, who are discriminated, okay, in the society. So suppose you are saying some person is being bullied, you interrupt, you know that it will involve a personal cost to me, okay, but still you interfere, okay, you try to protect that person who is being bullied, okay, you stand with those who are discriminated, you stand with those who are exploited, okay, even at the even at your personal cost, okay, you help people. So if each and every individual will start doing this, this will promote civil courage, and this will able this you can say this will ultimately make our society a better place to live. So we can say that voice of conscience is important for civil servants, and not only civil servant, it is important for everyone, right? Now for I will give you some examples so that you can understand the concept. For example, you are a government servant, public servant, and working in a department, and in that department you find that there is a financial fraud, and when you discover that financial fraud, you decided that I will expose this financial fraud. And when you take this decision that I will expose this financial fraud, you find that so many senior officers who are your seniors, okay, who are involved in this financial fraud, okay, and there are political linkages as well. You know that if I will expose this financial fraud, I will have to bear a personal cost. This might have an adverse effect on my career progression, but still you decides that no, I am going to expose this financial fraud. Okay, so here you are risking something. Okay, you are risking something, you are risking your career progression and exposing the financial fraud for the betterment of the society in public good. Okay, so here what we see that on one side there is personal gain, on other side, okay, your voice of conscience says that there is a moral duty. You are an officer, you are a public servant, and it is your duty to expose such financial frauds. So the ultimate decision which you have taken is guided by your inner moral compass, is guided by your voice of conscience, and it shows that you have given priority of moral duty over personal gains. Okay, so in this way, what do we see? That how our voice of conscience shapes our moral decision. Suppose you are a police officer and there is some crime and one person is arrested. You have investigated the case. You find that the person is innocent. The one who is arrested in a murder case is innocent. But suddenly your superior official says that okay, there is a political pressure, okay, to find the culprit who had committed this murder or crime. So what we will do? Okay, we have to encounter this person. The person which you have arrested, your senior officer is ordering you to do a fake encounter. Okay, but you decided that no, this person is innocent and I will not do fake encounter. Okay, what will happen? Again, it will adversely hit your career progression. Your senior official, okay, they will definitely do something. Okay, so you know that there is a pressure from my senior official. Okay, if I will not do this fake encounter, okay, there is this will adversely hit my career progression. So there is a career fear also, but still your conscience is saying that you cannot do injustice with an innocent man, and you deny, you refuse to take this order. So that shows the role of conscience. Okay, in the same way, a very simple example. Okay, suppose you find a wallet on a road that is full of cash. Okay, and there is identity card of the person who has lost his or her wallet, and there is a mobile number. Okay, you call that person and return the wallet. This shows your inner sense of honesty. No one was watching. You could keep that wallet. The money in the wallet you could use. No one will know. But still, you decided that no, I will not do this. I will return the wallet to the person who is the owner of this wallet, and you do it. Okay, so we see that at multiple times, at multiple occasions, we see that voice of conscience plays an important role and it shapes our decisions. Now, Mahatma Gandhi, okay, what we see that Mahatma Gandhi's ethical policy, ethical philosophy, what is that ethical philosophy? So, this ethical philosophy is Gandhi always believed that conscience is superior to the external laws. This line, this is very important. In history also I have discussed this. Conscience is superior to the external laws. It means that when your voice of conscience comes in conflict with the laws of the state, what is important to follow? So Gandhi says that it is important to follow voice of conscience. So this is very much important, that when your voice of conscience comes in conflict with state laws, so what you should do? You should go with your voice of conscience. Okay, and Gandhi did it because Gandhi fought for the freedom of India. Okay, and there was British rule in India, and we know that different movements and all this in history we have studied it. Okay, so this is the point that we need to understand, that voice of conscience is very much important. Here, this statement that the only tyrant I accept in this world is the still small voice within me. Okay, it means that your inner moral sense. Okay, so Gandhi acted on behalf of his inner moral sense. Okay, and that's why he had the courage to fight for the people of India. Okay, he left his profession of law and fought for the greater good. In the same way, Kant is an important philosopher. Okay, and this also will do discuss in our classes. Okay, and Kant discussed about duty based ethics, rule based ethics, law based ethics. This I have discussed in the class. Now what Kant says, that duty based morality, rule based morality is very much important. And what this voice of conscience does, so this voice of conscience enables us to act from moral duty, not personal benefit. It means simply the what is the voice of conscience according to Kant. Okay, so Kant says that some rules are prescribed, there is some duty. For example, if you are a civil servant, so you are familiar with administrative ethics. If you are a civil servant, you know about the code of conduct for the civil servants. Now simply what you had to do, you will have to act in accordance with these rules. And when you are acting in accordance with these rules, it means that you are doing your moral duty. And your voice of conscience, your voice of conscience does the same. Your voice of conscience or inner moral sense guides you to do your moral duty, that is also known as swadharma. Okay, it means that inner moral duty is important. Okay, so that is an important part. Okay, inner moral duty. And when we say inner moral duty, so according to Kant, when you are saying inner moral duty, so it simply means that what is important here, reasoning and rational, okay, analysis is involved. So this is what Kantian ethics. In Kantian ethics, the voice of conscience is in sync with the rule-based ethics or law-based ethics. We all know the famous example of Socrates, that what Socrates did. Socrates, okay, choose death over abandoning his principles. Okay, and who has guided Socrates to do this? So obviously, voice of conscience of Socrates, okay, guided him to choose death over abandoning his principle. So voice of conscience is what differentiates ethical living from blind conformity. Okay, so this is an important part. So I hope that you have got this idea. Now the next part is, you must have heard about Bhagavad Gita. Okay, and in Bhagavad Gita, what we see in Bhagavad Gita, there is a very famous reference. And what is that reference? Okay, so we see that Arjuna's inner moral crisis is a very famous example of, okay, voice of conscience. Okay, because in the battlefield, Arjuna is in ethical dilemma. What to do? He is fighting with his guru. He is fighting with his own family members. Okay, and he know that if the battle will start, I will have to kill my family members. Okay, I will have to kill my gurus. So he is in ethical dilemma, that whether to fight or not. So here, okay, what we see is that Krishna advises him to follow swadharma. And from where this swadharma comes? Okay, what is swadharma? It means listening to your voice of conscience, listening to your inner moral sense, and then identifying your duty. Okay, and you have to act accordingly. So this is a very famous example where Krishna advises, okay, that listen to your swadharma, act in accordance with with your swadharma. It is your moral duty or responsibility to fight war. Okay, and in this way Krishna guided Arjun in the battlefield. Now the next concept here is that, okay, yes, we are familiar with the voice of conscience, we know the definition, we know the application, but the next and the most important point is that how to strengthen voice of conscience. Okay, because I told you that it is universal. Voice of conscience, okay, is present in each and every individual, each and every individual. But the degree of voice of conscience in each and every individual is different. It might be possible that your voice of conscience, okay, is more superior than my voice of conscience. So how it happens? Okay, it means that if the degree of voice of conscience differs in different individuals, it simply means that the voice of conscience can be strengthened also. So how it can be strengthened? So the answer is very clear. It can be strengthened through moral education. Okay, I always have discussed in each and every lecture that in our schools we are given moral education. It was a part of our curriculum, right? In school, through different personalities of freedom movement, or you can say that different great reformers, we are taught values like honesty. We are taught values like sympathy, empathy. Mother Teresa, if you read what obviously you will know about this. Moral education was a part of our curriculum. Recently, we are discussing GS Paper 4, Ethics, Integrity and Aptitude for our UPSC mains preparation. So we know that if we inculcate moral values in the children, okay, so ultimately the voice of conscience could be strengthened. And how to inculcate moral values in the children? So it can be done with moral education. This is an important part. Okay, so the next important point is mindfulness and self awareness. This is also very much important. Okay, we will have to teach people to be mindful, to be self aware, okay, to hear and trust the inner moral voice. Many a times we see that those people who are not well acknowledged about these things, they don't listen to their voice of conscience. So obviously, okay, promoting mindfulness and self awareness can be an important idea here. The third and the most important point is spiritual practices. And when we say spiritual practices, for example, in yoga, meditation plays a very important role. No? So yoga is what? Is spiritual practices. Yoga, dhyan, adhyatma, meditation, prayer, introspection. Okay. So if you continuously do these spiritual exercises or practices like yoga, meditation, prayer, introspection, okay, so ultimately you will find that your voice of conscience is more strengthened. That's why it is said that, okay, in 24 hours, in one day, we definitely have half an hour, 20 minutes, or 1 hour of time where we should stay alone, we should remain silent, we should close our eyes and think about what happened today. Okay, so when you do this, okay, today, which actions I have taken, which are the moral actions, which are the immoral actions, what I have done, which I should not do. If you will think this, if you will do introspection for the entire day journey, if you sit for half an hour in meditation, close your eyes, okay, so ultimately you will find that this kind of practices will strengthen your voice of conscience, and the role of role models cannot be ignored. I have already discussed this idea that who is your role model, it also defines your character or personality, right? So inspirational figures, if we read about them, if we know about them, okay, if we know about their moral courage and strength, okay, so ultimately it will also guide us, it will also strengthen our voice of conscience. And that is why reading moral literature is also very much important. Bhagavad Gita is an example of such moral literature. If you read novels, okay, you will get a lot of, okay, idea about this inner moral sense. Okay, for example, if you read Macbeth, you will know about the guilt, okay, inner sense of guilt, so how it comes. Okay, so literature also, films also, many a times, okay, enables us to think. And when we think, when we introspect, what happens? Ultimately our inner moral sense, or we can say that voice of conscience, is strengthened. This is a very famous statement or quote of Mahatma Gandhi, that in matters of conscience, the law of majority has no place. In matters of conscience, it means that my conscience, what my conscience say, what is my voice of conscience, this is more important than the law of majority. If hundreds of people are one side, okay, and your inner voice or sense is giving you a different message, so you should go with your inner moral sense or voice of conscience. Okay, in the same way that Gandhi said that if your voice of conscience comes in conflict with the state laws, you should go with your voice of conscience. So this is the same idea. Another very famous statement is statement of Martin Luther King Jr. And what is the statement here? That the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort, but where he stands at the times of challenge. Okay, so what will happen when you are in a challenging situation? You still did not lose your hope. You fight with these challenges in a very effective manner. How it all happens? It happens because of your voice of conscience. Your voice of conscience guides you in this difficult situation. Now, the next and important point here is that I hope that you all are familiar with this basic idea, okay, so that you could get the detailed lectures of ethics. So the idea of this series, where I am discussing each and every keyword in different lectures, the basic idea is that if you will be familiar, it will be easier for you to grasp, okay, the detailed lecture of ethics, integrity and aptitude. Now, so I hope that you have understood that the voice of conscience is what? It is the foundation of an ethical living. The voice of conscience reminds us of who we are and what we ought to do. For civil servants, the role of voice of conscience is very much important, because at multiple times we face ethical dilemmas, okay, and we have to resist corrupt practices. So this voice of conscience helps us in doing that. The voice of conscience is also important for each and every individual, okay, because the voice of conscience ultimately, okay, makes us who we are. It ensures authenticity, it ensures inner peace, and ultimately it will also promote responsible citizenship. So whenever we are in a moral dilemma, or we are having a moral confusion or external pressure, okay, so listening to the voice of conscience, okay, ensures that we will stay on the path of truth, justice and righteousness. Okay, so what we can say, that when the world shouts, the voice of conscience whispers in our ears that what we have to do. And that is why we can say that it is the quiet guide to do what is right. So the role of voice of conscience is very much important. The role of inner moral compass sense is very much important. I hope that you have understand this topic. Thanks to all of you.